Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. This evening's Cabinet meeting, 12th of May, 6:30. Welcome to those online, members online and officers online, and any members of the public who are looking in this evening. And thank you for those that have arrived here this evening for this meeting. So, if I could have authorisation, please, to sign the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 7th of April. It seems an awful long time ago, but thank you very much. Thank you very much. If I can move that way. Thank you. Apologies for absence, please, Lord. Lisa.
Yes, Chair, there's apologies from Councillor Timpey and Deputy Chief Executive Andrew Vallance.
Thank you. Are there any additional agenda items?
There are none.
Okay. Urgent decisions?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay, disclosures of interest. Any members, we need to receive any disclosure by members of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, non-registrable interests in matters on the agenda, and the nature of any interest and details of any dispensations obtained. Members are reminded of the need to repeat their declaration prior to the commencement of the item in question. Councillor Bailey, Christine.
Yes, thank you. Can I declare an interest in agenda item number 8? I have publicly supported one of the other bids and made a donation to that organisation, and so I shall leave the meeting for that discussion.
Okay, thank you for that. Rory, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Declare an interest, non-pecuniary interest in item 6, community-led housing programme, as a board member of Bexhill Community Land Trust.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations? Councillor Richard Thomas.
Chair, item 6, as Chair of Brother District Housing Company, in the same position as Councillor McCall.
Okay, very good. So no other declarations. We are where we are. So the first item, agenda number 6, community-led housing programme update and renewed Sussex Community Housing Update SLA request. You're presenting this report. Graham's here to do the report. And Rory, you would like to introduce it, and then Graham will present it, yeah? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's obviously I'm speaking in support of this. I've fully support the community-led housing programme. I think it is it's complementary to our overall housing strategy in our attempt to increase our stock, which we've been doing quite well with temporary accommodation over the last few years. I think the whole concept of community-led housing is a sound one. I think it expresses a desire to develop grassroots housing that's closer to the community, democratic and accountable. And it has to be said, it's not a quick fix, though. Quite a lot of the work that goes into founding community land trusts and general community-led housing is a lot of capacity building, a lot of training of volunteers, and it can take a long time. I mean, I've personally been involved with the Sussex Housing Hub, Community Housing Hub, since 2018. I can speak some knowledge of their actions. Tom Mortar and Graham Monitors are actually excellent housing professionals. So I think the support that they provide for community groups in hoping to build social housing is invaluable. It has to be said, it's a difficult situation we're in, where building costs have gone up by 20 to 30%. We had the situation with Bexhill where Westridge went into insolvency and no longer operated. So I think it represents a return to the roots of housing associations before they became these large behemoths and somewhat aloof from their tenants. Not all, I should add, but some. Also, the interesting thing about community-led housing for me is that there is an asset lock involved in it, so that whatever is built cannot be sold off. It remains in the community in perpetuity, which is the great benefit of that. So, as I said, I think it's the support that's provided represents value for money. I think the 50k per annum for 2 years is money well spent, given the hours and the time and the effort and the expertise put in by the Sussex Community Housing Hub. So I support it, and I will hand over to Graham to say a bit more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rory. Graham.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Councillor McCall. So I'll just take us through the report very briefly, but thank you for that introduction from Councillor McCall. I don't intend to repeat anything that he's already gone over. So we currently have an extant service level agreement with the Sussex Community Housing Hub, which expires on the 30th of September this year. That was a 4-year SLA. The proposal here is to enter into a 2-year agreement, and I must apologise that it reads wrong in the bullet point number 1 that a 2-year £50,000 per annum SLA. That should be a total value of £50,000 across the 2 years at £25,000 per annum. That's on the same basis as the 4-year service level agreement that we're coming to the end of now, so £25,000 per annum. As I say, that's on the same basis that we are currently funding it. The Sussex Community Housing Hub, they're also funded by another 7 local authorities in Sussex. And in fact, all of the local authorities in East Sussex other than Eastbourne Borough Council currently. So very wide support, particularly in our locality. Members have had updates previously on the community-led housing programme, and as Councillor McCourt mentions, there have been many projects which have started over the last 5 years, some of which have progressed, and you've got more thorough updates on those in the appendices, and I can speak to those as well. But many projects are started and don't come to fruition, and that volunteer time, the training required, and the community support and energy required to get these schemes started is very significant. And without a service like the Sussex Community Housing Hub, it's very difficult for an organisation, for a parish council, for example, or a nascent CLT to take those first few steps. Okay. So the proposals that are set out is for a 2-year SLA, a total cost of £50,000. They're in paragraph 8. We could not enter into a new service level agreement. However, as set out in the report and the comments from Councillor McCourt, and I would echo those, that not having this type of support in place to move community-led housing forward would very significantly limit any delivery of that type of housing. We could also enter into a longer SLA at greater cost, still at £25,000 per annum, but over a 4-year period. We don't have the funds in the Community Housing Fund to do that. We have the funds for a 2-year agreement. And a view was also taken that with impending local government reorganisation, that a 2-year agreement means that we are still operating as Rother District Council distinctly at the point that SLA comes to an end. So yeah, we've had extensive discussions, particularly on the disposal of 2 sites, Cemetery Lodge and the land at Fairview in Pett and Guestling. And it sets out in the report some of the challenges that the Cemetery Lodge development has experienced, and Councillor McCourt spoke to those as well. That scheme has specifically been impacted, and they are wider issues that have impacted the development sector around costs of materials, costs of labour, costs of finance, that values haven't necessarily risen in line with those cost increases. And that's, significantly impacted on the scheme, so that to date, we haven't, the CLT haven't been able to bring forward a viable scheme on the acceptable terms where we can recover the existing use value of Cemetery Lodge as per our approvals for this project. I won't dwell further on that now, but happy to take questions. And then the land at Fairview, Guestling, Marsham CLT, which is a amalgamation of Pett, Guestling and Fairview parishes working together on a joint community land trust. That scheme is progressing well. The CLT are currently in a planning performance agreement with our planning service, and are targeting a planning application later in 2025. And just coming down to the implications briefly, that we have the funds in place for the 2-year agreement as recommended by this report. And yeah, in conclusion, I think there's been some very good work undertaken by the Sussex Community Housing Hub. I too would like to attest to the work of that hub, and particularly Tom Warder and Graham Maunders, in the efforts that they put in getting these community groups moving, being out there in the localities, in the parishes, getting new projects moving. There's an exciting project, particularly in Iden, which is in your appendices to take forward. And it's an example of the sort of thing that if you have the right people having those conversations in localities, that opportunities can be identified. And there are, philanthropic landowners, community people out there that want to see community-led housing built and have the resources to assist in that. So I will pause there. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Graham. Are there any questions from within the chamber? Yes, Sam.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to second the report.
Okay.
Please.
Do you mind if I ask a question, Graham, on the basis that it does seem that we're quite encouraged with the Guestling, something coming forward on that, so I think that's a real plus factor, and it would be great to get it in this window of opportunity. Viability of the Cemetery Lodge scheme, how far off are we in making that one happen? Because I think that, there's quite a bit of interest in that. There has been for many, many years. What's your view of actually bringing that to where we would want it to be, so that that can be completed, hopefully, before we ride into the sunset?
The CLT are exploring a scheme redesign at the moment, early stages of that, where initially they're looking to accommodate any extra units within the footprint of the existing design. From what we can see from initial sketches, that may bear fruit of maybe 2 smaller flats being able to be delivered within the footprint of the existing design. That would have some positive impact on development viability, but it has to be said that the cost of delivering 2 smaller units of that nature against the total value of your development might be slightly marginal, so it's not going to be a huge increase. Securing that existing use value has been a challenge as well, but that's the authority that we're operating under. An increase in the total number of units really is currently what's needed to make a more viable scheme there, and that is what's being explored.
So we're exploring all options, and hopefully over these next few months there will be something more positive coming from that. Yeah, okay. Online, good evening, John. Councillor John Barnes.
Yes, Leader, I'm very much behind what we're trying to do here. I'm disappointed always with the news on Cemetery Lodge. It's good to see Fairlight coming through. I've been a little disappointed with progress over the years in finding, really getting startups in the more rural areas in the north of the county. But we have a number of small parishes, unfortunately, and the larger ones don't always have land available. That said, I'm a bit worried. I can see all the reasons why we're doing a 2-year contract, but it will leave a degree of uncertainty in the transition year after the election of the shadow unitary. And I hope we can explore ways of actually ensuring that the community hub goes through that transition year successfully to the point where the unitary may take it on.
That would make sense in some way, Graham. I think that, with what, 7 local authorities involved with the Community Land Trust in some way, the community-led housing arrangements, we would need to maintain that continuity, I would have thought. But we don't know. Another of the many questions that we've not got answers to. Paul, Councillor Paul Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Similar sort of to John, really. Obviously Iden is in my patch, and Tom Warder has been out there a few months ago and gave a sort of presentation and talk. So hopefully we can get something together in Iden. And before that, before the sort of boundary changes, Icklesham was in my patch as well. So I remember going to the very, very early sort of scheme designs for the 15 houses we built in Icklesham in a community land trust as well. So yeah, I'm sort of all in favour of this, but my sort of question was similar to John's, is that, you know, these things take a long time to sort of grind them forward and move forward and get planning and everything else. And it would be a shame to sort of lose it in sort of local government reorganisation, in that somebody decides not to fund them, which I hope wouldn't happen, and I would assume it wouldn't happen, but it's always that sort of question: would a new mayor, new authority see different things and different pools on their money? But having said that, don't forget to change your recommendation. It needs adjustment to £25,000 per annum and 50,000 total. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I'll let Joe Powell, Director of Community, come in on that one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to explain that our funds are a little limited in this area, so we are having to cut our cloth, as it were. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that we are working very closely through the devolution and local government reorganisation process with the other district and borough housing authorities and the county across a range of priorities, you know, homelessness prevention, temporary accommodation management, just to name a few, but including community-led housing. So it will fall into that piece and that wider East Sussex strategy that we're developing with the in partnership with Public Health and the NHS trusts. So I do believe that it will remain on the agenda. It's just really, it's the form that we still have to sort of work out. The function, though, I feel confident will remain. But it is, unfortunately, I'm left with just reassurance at this stage, but I feel confident. Yeah.
Okay. Did someone say? Oh, right, okay. Sorry, Richard, I didn't see you there.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I think it's really worth stressing that although there is a high fallout rate with this particular approach to housing, when it succeeds brilliantly, as has happened at Icklesham, where very high quality housing has been delivered, ecologically sound, and housing that helps to keep up the vitality of the village by enabling new people to come into it. So it's a very, very good model of how to carry out development despite its drawbacks. What we're actually getting here, I think, is excellent value for money, because the Sussex Community Housing Hub will offer training and support to organisations and therefore reduce the fallout rate. Without the money we actually pay towards them, the fallout rate would be greater. So the money which we're proposing to spend is money really well spent. I just want to say in relation to Cemetery Lodge, obviously something I support very, very enthusiastically, as I'm sure other people do. I very much hope the redesign is able to actually produce some results, and obviously important to see if we can find, you know, a builder for that, which will be able to offer a very competitive rate on it. But it's just an excellent idea, because the idea is we actually help to house the homeless through that particular project, which is another reason why I think it should be supported. If the council can find more money to support this sort of thing, I would be in favour of it. From whatever pot it was found, I would be in favour of money being found to make sure that these schemes actually come about. So I'm very much in favour of this approach, and I hope we'll accept the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Richard. I think it would be really useful to have a sort of look at this later in the year, perhaps, Graham, or whenever you feel appropriate. I think that it's created this bit of interest, so just an update would be quite useful with Rory, and he can bring it back to Cabinet if we need to do so. So Rory, you've moved the report, yes, and Sam, you, whatever. No other questions of Graham, so those in favour, and that's unanimous, and thank you, Graham, for joining us this evening. Are you looking to go now, Graham, or are you going to...
I'll just stay for the next agenda item and then I'll go.
Excellent. Okay. So let's move on to the next item. 7. This is the Crowhurst Neighbourhood Plan Review. Yep, which I believe, are you presenting, Mike, or have we got Holly online? I'm not quite sure who wants to move this one forward.
If it's okay with you, Chair.
Is Teresa's going to move it forward? Yep. No? Have you made it? Well, no, yes.
Sorry, can I just say, before we actually start it, just to recognise that actually Councillor Charles Pearce has done a lot of work because he was the ward councillor for Catsfield and Crowhurst. And I'd just like it noted that, yes, he has worked tirelessly in that area. And unfortunately, we've had to accept his letter of resignation this week due to ill health. So I'd just like that noted.
Yeah, thank you for those kind words, and I'm sure Chaz would have been here this evening if that were the case. So just remind me, who's going to present this report? Holly's online. Right. Forgive me, Holly, I didn't quite see you there. Where you go, my dear, thank you. So it's the Crowhurst Neighbourhood Plan Review, recommendation to make the Crowhurst Neighbourhood Plan Review.
Thank you. So I'll keep it brief. Hopefully it's a relatively straightforward report. So the purpose of the report is to recommend that Council makes the Crowhurst Neighbourhood Plan Review so that it will become part of the statutory development plan for the area for use in determining planning applications and appeals. Members will recall that the Crowhurst Neighbourhood Plan Review was discussed at the Cabinet meeting in December last year. That was during the public consultation on the neighbourhood plan. Members were supportive of the neighbourhood plan review, and Rother's own representations were agreed at the meeting and subsequently submitted. Since then, the neighbourhood plan review has been the subject of an independent examination, which took place by means of written representations, so it didn't include any hearings. On completion of the examination in February, the examiner produced a report which concludes that the neighbourhood plan review, subject to some relatively minor modifications, meets the necessary legislative requirements to be made as part of the development plan. The examiner also confirmed that the changes made through the review were not so significant to require a new referendum. Officers have worked with Crowhurst Neighbourhood Planning Group, who agree that the examiner's proposed modifications are acceptable. The Neighbourhood Plan Group has produced a final version of the Neighbourhood Plan, which incorporates the examiner's modifications, and this is included at Appendix 1 of the Cabinet report. It's therefore appropriate to recommend to full Council that the Neighbourhood Plan Review is made for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, Holly. Teresa, you're going to move the report. Are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make? Catherine.
I would like to comment and I'd like to second, but I don't know if I should be seconding before it's being proposed.
Okay. Okay, shall I propose? Thank you very much.
I'm happy to second that. I did though want to observe, and I know that Chas has been very involved with this, but I am Crowhurst County Councillor and I've known the parish for the last 33 years, and I think we also ought to remark what a dedicated group of people have been working on this for a long time. I mean, I've been observing peripherally at parish council meetings. It's been an enormous amount of hard work and it's been extremely thorough, and I think everybody needs to be commended for this, and I think any parish that hasn't got one of these actually ought to take note of those parishes which have and have their own, because as we know, it's very helpful in defending against speculative development, and it does help villagers think about where their housing goes, and I believe many villagers end up having more houses than we've asked them to take when they've sat down and really looked carefully at what they've got to offer. So I've no hesitation in seconding this and saying, please, big thank you to everybody in Crowhurst who's been involved with this.
I will invite Councillor Barnes to make a comment and then we'll take it to the vote. Yes,
yes, I echo a lot of what Councillor Field is saying. I just have one slight query. I was looking again at the cover and it says 2018 to 2028. It may actually be a conversion, but it does seem slightly odd that we're making something in 2025 which will run to 2028, but it appears to run from 2018. I just wonder a little about the public understanding or public misunderstanding that may contribute to. I have to say, Etchingham is hard at work on a neighbourhood plan and having quite a lot of technical difficulties. But again, we started a long time ago, and it does seem to be a very lengthy process.
Yes, thank you, John. Is there a response to that, Holly?
I mean, so it starts in 2018 because obviously we have a Crowhurst neighbourhood plan already and it's been reviewed. So it was first made in 2019. So and they started it in 2018. So that's why it starts then. It finishes in 2028 to be in line with the core strategy, because we didn't give Crowhurst a new housing number to work towards. So they're still working towards their core strategy number, which they did exceed, as Councillor Field explained. So they found land for more than enough houses to cover that period to 2028. But what they didn't relook at the sites as part of this review. This review covered other things, including some new policies, dark skies, some policies around blue infrastructure, biodiversity, that sort of thing. So they didn't relook at housing. We didn't give them a new number, so that's why it finishes in 2028.
Jolly good. Well, thank you for that very clear explanation. And Councillor Barnes has put the thumbs up, so he's grabbed it as well. So that's we understand that. So that's excellent. We've moved it. We've seconded it. We will vote, and that is unanimous. The only question I would just like to ask, whether Michael or Graham or any Holly, is that an awful lot of work goes into neighbourhood plans, I understand, and this often puts off a lot of people that would want to bring it forward. Is that process something that's being looked at to simplify it or make it less complicated, less demanding, or is that just wishful thinking?
I mean, I can try and answer. I mean, there's no sort of way around it. It does require a group of very dedicated, very hard-working volunteers, and that needs to be recognised. It is quite it is a complex process, but at the same time, I think neighbourhood planning groups can choose what to focus on, so they don't have to do everything, and they can just focus on what's important to them in their parish. And we do have a new neighbourhood planning officer who's recently started in the team. He's really great, and obviously we're more than happy to advise parish councils, interested parish councils and neighbourhood planning groups on the process as much as we can.
Very good. Thanks very much indeed. You want to add anything, Graham or Mike?
I'll just add something very quickly, if I may, Chair, which is, neighbourhood planning is not for the faint-hearted. There's lots and lots of hours that go into it, and I'm not aware that the government are looking at simplifying the process. However, as a council, we support, as Holly has said, through the neighbourhood planning office. Thank you, Chair.
Jolly good. Okay, we can move on from that report. Thank you, Holly, for joining us. Graham, are you looking to go home for supper? And we'll move on to agenda item 8.
Yeah, can I just re-declare, Chair?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, so agenda item 8, the former Edgerton Park Outdoor Bowls Club letting proposition that's come forward. Cabinet member is not available to propose this and present this report this evening, so Joe Pearl, Director of Community, will do so. And the recommendation of the Council's Property and Service Investment and Disposal Panel to seek approval to lease the Outdoor Bowls Club ground and clubhouse. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just to remind members, there is a confidential appendix to this report that we can discuss, but it have to be in confidential session, so we'll need to keep our eye on that if we want to discuss those appendices. But to run over the publicly accessible and available part of the report, it's important to note that the recommendation for applicant A is the offer is below the commercial offer on some of the commercial offers that have been received. However, the occupier will provide an important, very important, necessary service for children with special educational needs, and as such, our best value considerations do allow us to forego that. You can see in summary that we received offers between 1,000 and 18,000, and those were received from more traditional suppliers, including a coffee shop, restaurant, and a children's nursery, for-profit organisation, I should say. And just to reassure members, I understand that they have secured accommodation or have accommodation under offer, because I know nursery accommodation is also an important function. So the secondary part of the report was really around the choice of applicant A over applicant B. Just to update members, applicant B has now formally withdrawn their offer, so that part of the report is perhaps a little narrower in scope now, and we can just talk generally about the benefits of the provider. It was an unusual position for the council, having two very similar proposals before it in this way, and we have encouraged the parties to continue to try and work with one another to the benefit of this group of vulnerable children and their families. The aims of the group are supporting neurodiversity and the children and families is consistent with the East Sussex County Council's All-Age Autism Action Plan. The applicant A does receive funds from East Sussex County Council Special Educational Needs, a number of grants already, and we have confirmed that with East Sussex County Council colleagues who've confirmed those grants and that they have no concerns with the operation of this provider. You'll be aware of the significant cost burden to the County Council of special educational needs, and a rise in particularly in the education service post-COVID of a younger generation coming through seems to be particularly affected, or may be particularly affected. So while Rotherham District Council does not have its own SEND policy, of course with LGR as well coming forward, local government reorganisation, we are keen to support policy in this area, but we do have our own Live Well Locally priorities within the council plan, which commit us to supporting inclusive community-led services and improve health and well-being. And I think this is very consistent with that, and I think the proposed hub directly reflects these. So happy to take questions, being mindful of the confidential appendices, which we can also talk about in more detail but in confidential session. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for bringing that forward. Are there any questions or comments within members here in the chamber? Councillor Sam Coleman. Sam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd sort of say, as equalities and wellbeing is my portfolio, I think it's important to express the sort of net benefit, huge benefit that comes from choosing an applicant who was maybe less of less financial value in terms of the bid compared to the other bids that we've seen in the reports, but certainly in terms of community value, absolutely huge. And you know, I think about the Shore Start Centre, a nursery that used to be on Edgerton Park, that we sadly lost a while back, and you know, that combined with the fact that particularly special educational needs and neurodiverse spaces are urgently needed, particularly for young people and children as well. I think any pursuit in that direction is absolutely an incredible thing. And you know, I do a lot of work with the Equalities Steering Group, and we're sort of looking at the way the council handles equalities and how we interact with communities of different protected characteristics. And things like this should absolutely be, you know, preserved and cherished and supported going forward into whatever the new unitary looks like, because it's easy to lose things like this which aren't as financially valuable. And I think actually it's a sort of a testament to our new sort of asset policies, actually, that we're including social value as such a key and integral part. obviously I think it is both strange and unfortunate that we had two applications that were very similar but different in some key sort of areas. And obviously now that one's withdrawn, I think the choice is clear. It is what it is. But I hope that certainly both of those applicants and the services that both of them were looking to deliver can somehow find a way to work together in the future, or for those same services to be delivered in some form or other in the park. Because I think if you're a parent of a neurodiverse child and you're using Edgerton Park, which is an incredible space for families, and you need a space to go that is either free or affordable and is easy to access, I think providing that space is really, really key. But this is a really positive thing. And we don't get to do many positive things, in the context of financial insecurity and all of the sort of cuts and savings that we have to make. So I think this is a real bonus. So I support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those comments, Sam, which I concur with. I think you've made some really good points there, which I think we will accept. Aaron.
Thank you, Leader. And just to agree with what Councillor Commons has said there, it's just nice to see the weight going on the community value. And without prejudice, I hope that's something that we can take forward while our time is with us before and with the local government reorganisation. Yes, it's a really good project, and Send Need is in need. I often hear, so it's really good to support this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Councillor Ashan, are you there, Ash?
Hello, good evening. Yeah, I think Councillor Sam Coleman and Councillor Ariel Ruffman have pretty much covered the comments that I wanted to make initially. I think obviously being so heavily involved in the financial aspect of the council, I think I just wanted to be really clear that it was one of those propositions that almost felt like a no-brainer, even though from a financial perspective, my key role is to support maximising income and ensuring that we spend things appropriately. But I think with this proposition, it was just really clear that the community and social value outweighed the relatively modest drop in rent that we would have secured with one of the commercial providers. So fully support this report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ash. Councillor Jimmy Stanker. Jimmy?
Hello, thank you, Leader. I'd like to support this proposal, obviously not mentioned in the confidential, as a parent of a neurodiverse foster child to East Sussex, and limited facilities. And you've also got the NHS Child Development Unit at the other end of Edgerton Park, which is very linked, and we go there quite often, and there isn't facilities available. And if you can do more proactive, you wouldn't have the huge expenses to hire tier authorities in the future. And it's very great, and there's more ways to measure income and benefit. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Will Wright is online. Did you want to make any comments, Will? Because I know that you've worked with this proposition and given us the steer towards making the decision at the investment and disposal panel. Anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. Thank you, Leader. I think your colleagues have summarised, and Joe, of course, as always, has summarised the situation really well. And it's really, it's nice, to be honest, to hear your feedback as to a recommendation we're making and the importance of the social value, community value. So,
Jolly good. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your work on this. Councillor Vicky Cook. Vicky?
Yes, thank you. I think this is the most wonderful use of a defunct building. I really do. I really hope, though, that as this is kind of like a prototype use of a building for this specific purpose, I'd like to think that, we will be keeping sort of, not exactly sort of key indicators, but we will be watching it closely so that should other places like Battle and Rye want to do a similar thing, we will have a proven work programme or a proven plan so that others can follow this excellent example.
Yep, I think it's a very good point. There's a model here to follow for other communities, hopefully.
That was the word I was looking for.
I thought you were. Okay, it's fine. There's no other comments. apart from Joe wanted to make another comment.
Very briefly, I just wanted to commend Taris and Will, who work in the estates team, because they very much did present this to members and to me as an idea worked up. So thank you.
Jolly good, that's fine. In the absence of Hazel, are you going to move the report, Aaron?
Yes, I can move it. Yeah.
Thank you. And Teresa is going to second the report.
Yes, thank you.
And we are in favour of this, I would hope, this unanimous. And yes, this model could be rolled forward to other parts of the community, because it obviously works if they're the sort of groups that are out there to make this happen. So that's fine. Right. Oh, yes. Yeah. So we're on to... Okay. Agenda item? Oh, okay, yes, okay. Where are we? Oh, yes. Okay. Right. Christine's back with us. Fine. So agenda item 9, exclusion of press and public. So the following item includes material which is exempt from publication by virtue of Part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended. It is recommended that the press and public be excluded. The relevant paragraph of Schedule 12A indicating the nature of the exempt information is stated after the item and is reproduced in full at the end of the agenda. In all the circumstances of each case, it is considered that the public interest in maintaining exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Right. So where are we? Oh, it needs to be moved and seconded. Right, moved. Yeah, seconded. Sam, voted on. Yeah, unanimous. Fine. That's where we are then. So let me just find. Okay. Okay. So that concludes this evening's cabinet meeting. 1914. Thank you everyone for joining us, and those online and those that were in the gallery. Good night.